Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. Before I introduce my guest, well, here's the thing. Okay, I'm recording today in my kind of living room. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is a new space. Isn't this exciting, everyone? For my 5 YouTube followers, I think I have 1,000 subscribers. Where are all my subscribers? Are you just listening on Apple and Spotify? I need you to come watch on YouTube. Or just at least subscribe. That I would appreciate that. Also, I'm still a little bit hoarse. This thing is never going away. I finally went to the ENT. I'm going on steroids. I purposely didn't start the steroid pack before I recorded today because I did not want Dr. Gupta to be afraid of me. Everyone, I am so excited, honored, really excited to talk about this topic because I've talked about it before. I'm very open with my own journey. Dr. Vivek Gupta is a board certified obesity doctor, also an internal medicine doctor. I am actually going to see Dr. Gupta. He is a partner in the Mindful Wellness brand. So I had Dr. Shah on, shortened to Shah, a few weeks ago. And now I'm having her partner in crime in her new venture on the podcast as well, because he can tell you a little bit more about this. But ladies and gentlemen, as we age, specific to women, everything starts to break down. Right? I'm in perimenopause. I'm in the thick of it. Weight gain, skin issues, hair issues. So I think there is no better thing to go hand in hand as weight gain. So having the weight problem go hand in hand with the perimenopause, the menopause. So thank you, Dr. Gupta, for coming on, and thank you for your brilliance. This is so exciting for me and my listeners. We've all been put here for a reason, and we all deserve acceptance.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.
I'm a trauma survivor from a really young age, and I have been diagnosed with complex PTSD in the past few years. I've been surrounded by death and abuse much of my life. I've been dragged through the mud and have been to the point of not wanting to go on anymore. Through my interviews with other survivors, I've learned that there is a way out. From recovering to surviving and thriving, we all have the strength to come out the other side.
You are listening to Judging Meghan.
I mean, I really appreciate being able to come on to your podcast. Thank you so much.
Well, I think your idea. Also, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Shah, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, she's
so
amazing.
When I recorded with her, I hadn't seen her in person. I had just talked to her, and she came on the podcast, and she blew me away. She also blew me away because I sat there with her. I don't know. Not many doctors sit with you for 2.5 hours. She sat there with me for 2.5 hours. She gave me answers to things I did not understand. I did not know. I'm a huge believer in her. I hope I've had a lot of people reach out. So I hope people are reaching out to her, because I'm going to tell you, this woman is fantastic. So I am guessing that you're just as fantastic, if not more, just joking, Dr. Shah, than Dr. Shah.
Yeah, I mean, she's so I think it's helpful, a background. So I started in the traditional medicine system as a hospitalist, and I actually went into management. I was managing a PCP clinic, a PT clinic, skilled care nursing facilities. Then 3 years ago, I continued to do that on this. I actually did both, but 3 years ago, I started this clinic called Mindful Weight Loss. And in the last year, I left the admin part, but modern medicine is difficult. There's a lot of different pressures, but I found starting this, and all of our patients, we meet with them in our first visit for a really long period of time, right? Which is very different than, unfortunately, the 15-minute appointments that we get. And there's reasons, again, for that. But I think this is the true way of practicing medicine, because we can actually get to know people, right? And then it's how can you really help people without truly getting to know them and everything about them? So I'm really again, I keep using the same word, but I'm grateful I was able to start this. And then we started with Dr. Shah we just started this new venture with her because she has the same type of thinking where really it starts with the biologic approach, right, to this issue. What I start, and I'm not sure if this is the right time, but I'll just say it. It's basically
go for it.
Okay. So what we start with, right, is that 70% of us struggle with this issue, right? 70% of us have BMIs
70% of us struggle with weight gain. We'll start on your end.
With weight.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
With
so
weight.
More specifically, 70% of us have a BMI over 25 in America.
Yes.
Right. So we just described BMI as, obviously there's more, we could talk about that as well, but it just shows this is not like an individual issue. If 7 out of 10 humans struggle with something, it shows there's something systemic going on. And really the truth of the matter is it's because we all live in this food environment where these companies make trillions of dollars pushing all this high fat, high sugar, low fiber, ultra processed foods that are more addictive than cocaine even. Mm-hmm. Right? Like we've proven that fMRI studies, and just being a human in the world, right, is that. Right. And so what I would say is that, the central principle of being a human is we all seek to escape suffering. And my line is there's suffering in the world and Doritos feel good. Right. And so that's the main reason why we have this issue. If you put all of this addictive stuff around us 24/7 and we have these busy, stressful lives, of course we're going to get it. Right. And so I got a master's of public health when I was younger. And initially, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to change the food system, the farm bill. We shouldn't have 14 McDonald's from here to anywhere else. We should change the whole thing, pull it out by its roots. But unfortunately, that is difficult to do, as we all know in this world. Right. And so we can't do that. But using that approach and really understanding it and internalizing it, which is not an intellectual thing, it's a practice thing, by the way, that we do. But basically, we can use that approach, right, to really, as opposed to all the guilt and shame that, so I've struggled with weight in my life. I feel this. I see all my patients. I have a lot of patients who don't go to doctor's appointments again because of this guilt and shame, unfortunately, because in medicine, we're not conditioned to deal with this, or trained to deal with this. But basically, we can use that to actually start with self-compassion and look at our lives with true empathy to find true interventions that work.
Okay.
So that was a long answer.
What I'm going to say is, and I love every second of it, women, well, I'm going to talk I'm going to use myself as an example because why not? This is my podcast. Yeah. You're my guest. Why not humiliate myself? I'm joking. I am very open with my lifelong struggle with food. I was bulimic for all of my teens and 20s. My metabolism up and down, got into perimenopause in my 40s. I was one of those people. I was an actress when I was young, so I could constantly just be like, I was always curvy, but I could go on a diet. I could lose 10 pounds. I could control it. Then all of a sudden, we do, like you said, have an obesity crisis in our country, and food and alcohol, all the things that are in our faces that it didn't seem to be a problem in prior years, but it's because all the chemicals, all the stuff that's in our food, etc. But also women do not want to be, and most of my audience is female, so I'm just going to tell you that they do not.
That's fine.
We don't want to be pushed aside in our 40s and 50s. We're not our grandmothers, right? My grandmother, God rest her soul, I loved her. Both my grandmothers, they had perms, and they were wearing granny clothes, and it was fine back then to have a little bit of extra weight on your body. But we're in a different time. Women want to feel like they're still young. We have all the science on our faces. We have Botox, we have fillers, we have plastic surgery has come I don't even know how far from just even 5 years ago. So why not match up how our faces can look and our bodies can look and everything else just going together? So
100%.
For this long-winded thing that I'm telling you, I was over COVID, drink like so many women, drinking every day, starting at 3 o'clock, shoving food in my face, depressed. I put on a solid 20 pounds. And that was so upsetting because when I really started working at it, I could not lose it. And so we're going to talk about this now. I took the route, like so many other women are doing now, of going to the doctor, sitting. And I will say this because I know they don't listen and it is kind of frustrating. So I'm excited to see you. Well, what are you doing? Are you exercising? Yeah, I exercise 5 days a week.
Yes.
Are you eating right?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm
Guilt
eating
and
right.
shame.
And it's almost like you're made to feel like there's something wrong with you.
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just want to start there.
100%.
And then, first, before I go into the rest, tell me how you feel about that.
No, I mean, that is such the experience of all my patients, like seeing, the majority of the medical establishment. I mean, okay, so like when I went through med school, when I went through training, like we don't get any training in any of this, right? Like it's only because I got boarded in obesity medicine, I'm in this field, that I can see, and I've struggled with myself, and I just see all my patients. I can see how horrible that is, because it's always like you go to the doctor, that you have like your blood pressure's high or your sugars are high or whatever, and they go, oh, you have to lose weight. But then it's always like the onus is on the patient because they're saying like, oh my gosh, this is your fault that you have done this, right?
Yeah.
And even the kinder version of this is like, oh, you can try harder, is frankly just BS, right? I think the thing you have to understand, we all have to understand, is we're all in this thing, this system, this food system, this environment that is so that just leads to this issue, right? That over and over and over and again. That's why I always stress we have to actually practice self-compassion, right? And it's not something we can think our way to, but that's what we do in our clinic. And we use mindfulness, we use coaching, we use therapy, we use everything, right? Nothing's off the table. We talk about literally everything, right? Because it is biological. And now there's been a lot of good studies in the last 10 years that have actually elucidated a lot of this, right? Because actually when we lose weight, so the whole thing is this whole system was made to evolve for hundreds of thousands of years. And what you said was totally spot on. Like this new food system has only existed for the last 70 years, right? This industrial food farm machine, right? For hundreds of thousands of years, the ones who survived were the ones who can go out into the world, find calories, store them on themselves forever, and keep them on in the famine, war, plague, whatever it be, right? At least in our time and place, right? We have now actually everywhere. When you look at 8 billion humans, more people now have diseases of too many calories rather than too few, which is crazy, right? And that's just like, it's an amazing thing when I learned that and read that, but it just again shows that the way we're dealing with it, going back to your original question of like, this is on you, this is your fault, you have to deal with this. Like, why aren't you dealing with this? It's just so wrong-headed, right? Because again, for the simple fact, I mean, having a patient today and I was talking to her about this, and you just can't argue if 7 out of 10 humans struggle with something, that cannot objectively be true. Additionally, we now have these biological mechanisms that when we lose weight, we actually get hungrier, we actually get less full. But the hardest thing in the world, and this was really proven by the Biggest Loser study, right, which really validated a lot of people's experience actually. So what they did, they took people who were on that show 6 years later, they studied, right? And they found that compared to a person who never gained weight, that person had to eat like 400, 500 calories less just to maintain, right? So basically you have two people who are 100 pounds or like 200 pounds. One person gains 100 and loses it. Another person never gains any weight, right? That person who lost the 100 pounds has to eat much less than this person who never gained weight just to maintain their weight. And these are all the metabolic factors.
And so they also the majority of them, without some of the new things that we're going to talk about, have gained the weight back.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And so it's a vicious cycle. I mean, if you go to other countries, they make fun of Americans for many reasons. And many of my listeners are all over the world. So thank you for listening wherever you are. I really appreciate it. We also lack in the United States the exercise. We don't walk everywhere. Our foods are not
I would
clean.
like to push back on that though. As
you
a
don't,
food system
am I
moves,
wrong? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just think as a food system moves to all over the world, we're having rates of obesity everywhere. So even countries where my parents from India that have a lot of malnourishment have a ton of obesity. Europe is like struggling with it. China, South Korea. The only country that's been actually able to buck the trend is Japan. Japan has not like struggled with it, despite South Korea and China have. So
I
would say that this
didn't
isn't.
know this. I didn't know this. You're
Yes.
teaching me something. I hope you're. I
So
mean, I
this
know
is a
you're
fun, and
teaching
this
me a
just
lot of
shows how
stuff.
much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this just shows how much of a fundamental nature of this food system this is.
Because they're starting to eat all of the foods all over the world are changing, but also
Yeah,
as
it's
we
all going
evolve as
everywhere.
human beings. Let me ask you this. So there's a lot of controversy going around about semaglutides and trizepatides, and
Sure.
I am a huge believer in them. And let me tell you why. Okay. And I know that you're a believer in them too. I have struggled with yo-yo dieting. I can't even, like I told you in the beginning, since I was a teenager, my metabolism got all messed up. Now I'm in, older. It's really, really hard. It also does a number on you. Like if you lose weight and then you gain it back and it just creeps back up, like if you eat badly for one day. So I want to go talk about some of the amazing advances in medicine and some of the myths that are not true and some of the realities of things that you really need to look out for and worry about. I will tell you this. I have tried the Manjaro, and I'm somebody that was not approved because insurance would not take me. So I got a sample of it. And right away I was like, what is this stuff? This is the most amazing thing I've ever taken. It did cause some side effects, which we can go into, but I was like, this is amazing. But then I couldn't get it. And then my insurance company literally wrote me a letter, no lie. And it said something along the lines, and we'll talk about insurance companies. I don't mean to be mean, but
no, we could talk about all that. Yeah.
Okay. It said something like, why don't you try diet and exercise? It was something along those lines. And I was literally like,
100%.
is this a joke?
It's so frustrating.
So I couldn't get approved to do that route. And then I decided I was going to go the route of the compounded route. Okay.
Yeah.
But the thing about the compounded, which I want you to break down all of the different types, is it makes me nervous because I'm not under a doctor's care. So how do you know? And I've had a lady on that lost 105 pounds on Manjaro. So I'm a huge believer in this. But I want you to break down what is going on. What is happening right now with all of this noise and the people that are saying, you're stealing my Ozempic. You don't need to be on it. They see me and, or they see women and they're like, you're too skinny. I'm not saying they're saying that to me, but like, why are you stealing our Ozempic? So let's start there.
Only patients are struggling with all this stuff. So, okay. So I think it's important if you'll humor me for a little bit to explain the mechanism of these medications, because I just met with the patient right now. Like so many med spas are giving it to people and they're not explaining anything, right? So, okay, I think it's important. So just to start from the beginning, we have these hunger increasing pathways in our body and hunger decreasing pathways. Okay, the whole system is biased towards hunger increasing, but we do have these hunger decreasing pathways. And as food is moving down our GI tract, our pancreas and intestines are releasing these fullness hormones called GLP, GIP, CCK, amylin. They go to our brain, they decrease our hunger. They slow our GI tract and make us feel full. So our body's normally doing this. So now we have created these beautiful new molecules that emulate these satiety hormones. So it's important to understand, I think, for the listeners and everybody, because this is confusing, that every medicine has a molecule name and a brand name. Okay, so you have ibuprofen, that's the molecule name. The brand name is Motrin and it's Advil. You have acetaminophen, which is a molecule name, and Tylenol is a brand name. So there's really only two medicines, right, in this actual world. There's semaglutide and tirzepatide. Okay, semaglutide initially came out for diabetes in 2016, and it was branded the world famous Ozempic. Then Novo Nordisk got the FDA approval in 2021, right, for weight loss. And instead of saying now you can use Ozempic for weight loss, they rebranded it as Wegovy. Okay, so Ozempic and Wegovy are literally the same thing, right? Unfortunately, a lot of doctors don't even know that. They've made it so confusing, these companies. Then we have this other medicine called tirzepatide, right? It emulates two satiety hormones. So where semaglutide emulates something called GLP, tirzepatide really stimulates GLP and GIP. Initially came out for diabetes, and it was called Mounjaro. It literally last week got the FDA approval for weight loss, and that is called, I don't know where they came up with this name, but it's called Zepbound. Okay, so
Why?
Wegovy
It's
is
so
too.
weird.
I'm just perplexed. I actually talked to the reps, and I'm saying like, why did you name this? It's so frustrating. Okay, but like Wegovy is to Ozempic as Zepbound is to Mounjaro. So in 2024, everyone's going to be really hearing this name a lot, right? It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be all over the TikTok and everything, right? Then we have the compounder, right? So how compounded works is there's a law that says if a medicine is in short supply, you can compound it. And so these compounding pharmacies, what they do is they buy it from an FDA-approved supplier, right? It's FDA approved. The supplier is FDA approved, and they're under the state board of regulatory. Like in each of wherever the compounding pharmacy, you have to be under the board of the state board of pharmacies, right?
Okay.
So what we do is, we try to get our patients. We're pretty good about trying to get it in insurance. But if you want to get into the intricacies of insurance, so what it is that insurance companies put weight loss medications in their own category. And it's like an opt-in thing, not an opt-out thing, meaning that it's all like before it was all happenstance, whether like your employer selected the plan. And it's not like the traditional things you think of like PPO, HMO. No, it's just whatever plan it is, if that plan had this weight loss medication thing in it, right? So you have to have that weight loss medication in it, right? And once you get in it, then there's all these other things. But frankly, for insurance companies, every time they approve it, it's money out of their pocket, unfortunately. So that's why this system is very complicated and nuanced. I understand it very well because I worked for a company that kind of dealt with this a lot. And we work really hard to get it through insurance and do the appeals and do all that stuff and well versed in it. But if we can't, then we also use compounding. But I think that in terms of the issues, right, I 100% agree with you. These medications are revolutionary, right? Because the thing is that, and tell me whenever you want me, I can talk forever about this.
No,
stuff, so
I'm like literally there's when I knew I was interviewing you, so I was in Palm Springs and I was like, I have to race home. I cannot wait to talk to you. I could talk to you. And I think my listeners want to know this stuff because there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much inaccurate information. Also, like we're the culture of social media, and you hear like, one bad thing, one good thing about it, and women specifically are like, "What? Yeah. I can lose 20 pounds I've been struggling with? Are you joking?"
Yes.
But then we're also hearing stuff like, some lady just died in Australia because she was, so there's all kinds of stuff going on. So that's why when you talk about the difference of going through, like I have a friend, I won't say her name, that ordered hers through TikTok and it's through a compounded pharmacy. I was like, how do you know? Yeah. How do you know like what it is? And so that's a whole separate thing, but yeah, like keep going, keep talking.
So I think my whole view on, okay. So what I tell people, and like, there's nothing natural about our food system. When we step out the door, all of these things are constantly increasing our hunger, increasing pathways, right? And so what these medications do is like actually make it a fair fight, right? It's increasing our hunger, decreasing pathways. Right. And like I was saying, like, yes, the true solution may be, again, to change our food environment, make it so when you're driving around, like it's so backwards, right? The fact that like the easiest things in the world to do when we're driving around and doing stuff is to get the Taco Bell or whatever, right? Rather than like getting out of a car, going to somewhere, getting a much better food. Like if we lived in a much more functional world, it would be the opposite. It would be you'd have to go out of your car, go into a place, and that's where you'd get the addictive ultra processed things. And by the way, we're learning a billion things about ultra processed things. So I want to frame this by saying like, when we're talking about this is a tool, right? And like how much disease does like Pepsi Cola and Nabisco and all these things cause every single day? Right. And so like we all as humans have the status quo bias, right? Like we think that doing nothing is better than doing something, right? Like these are tools. right? And that's why, I agree. Like every medicine, every tool, you have to balance between effect and side effect. I think a lot of horror stories are because they're inadequately dosed, right? People either go up too fast or it doesn't work because people aren't going fast enough and they're not going. And you can use them I use them in very interesting, creative ways, right? Like I go up and I go down. I use them every 2 weeks. I can use them like take people off, put people on. I can microdose in different ways, but you use them as a tool that they are. But I think that like so often, I bet you the food companies are going to start funding negative research, like negative publicity on these soon. But like, I think that like so often it's just like, yes, there's cases, of course. And I'm not saying like we should be like, again, the ordering from TikTok or whatever, like working with I would encourage people to work with us or somebody, a specialist, right? Like who can actually do this well. But again, like, the alternative is we just live in our world where with these addictive foods every day, we're like going to pick up our kids, we're like trying to do work, we're trying to get home, right? And do this. Like there's reasons why we do these things, right? And so like, again, I bring it back to self-compassion. What that means operationally is that we do things for a reason and we don't do things for a reason. And too often in those reasons, we deal with guilt and shame and criticism. Like, oh, I should get up 5 hours early and work out. Or I should come home and do something like Whole30 and cook for 3 hours, which is ridiculous. That's stupid. You shouldn't expect anybody to do that, right? And so instead, like understanding those reasons, we can figure out like, okay, maybe it's not that. Maybe let's work on like, okay, let's do something equally as easy. Let's get pre-made meals or something, right? And of course, the medicines are integral parts of these things, right? If people are comfortable with it and everything.
Well, what I'll say also is, and I'm going to use myself as the guinea pig because I'm very open with these things because I think what really drives me nuts, and I brought this up when Dr. Shaw was on, is when women are lying about it. I mean, it's fine. It's your business. But what the Real Housewives, right? They're all on TV. Yeah. They've suddenly all lost 50 pounds, maybe not 50, but like 30, 40.
There's a lot
and
of
they're saying
like that
one in particular said she went on some like menopause medicine and lost the weight. Well, honey, that doesn't happen.
Yes. And
go ahead.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that too.
Yeah.
That's frustrating. That's so frustrating. Okay. So, I mean, I tell my patients, because there is a lot of guilt and shame, right? I always tell them it's your business. Like you have to do what's right for you, right? Like, because sometimes because of all this stuff, right? But I think it is different, like as a position of celebrity, right? I do think, it's a lot of things with like, it's the same things with, when like it's this group think that causes people to feel more guilt and shame. And I'm hoping this doesn't come off as insensitive or something, but, in some communities, like if someone had a miscarriage or something, they don't talk about it or, and again, like I don't want to paint it as a hard brush. These are painful, difficult situations, but it just, at least just thinking about it, like more productive, like we're humans. If we share with each other what we're doing, it's only good for us. And it makes people, and I think like weight is easier to have a more finer point on this because you could be more righteous a little bit, because like, I think that at least for people, maybe not on the meds, maybe like it was this host of The Biggest Loser, right? Like that judge, like she was initially critical of these meds. And it was so frustrating because the thing is like her job is freaking working out for 7 hours a day, right? Like, most of us, like all of us, don't have that. We have other stuff to do. There's other things and whatever. Like even if we don't want to, that's equally valid, right? This is like equally valid to how we want to spend our time on this planet, right? So I think that like there's so much equally like judgment, and I guess like I don't want to put more judgment on people who don't reveal it, but I think I'm hearing like exactly what you're saying. Like it would just be helpful, if nothing else, if people share their experiences.
So therefore, I think that if more, and it again, it's a personal thing. Like I said, if you decide that you've suddenly lost 30 pounds and you don't want to tell people how, and you are like, I'm just working out and all this stuff. Well, let me be real. It makes people feel bad. It does. So maybe rethink that, because you're saying is making a bunch of women think like, let me give the housewife, because she's open about it, so I'm going to give her as an example. And if you're saying you're on a menopause medicine, like women are obsessed with what they look like, so then all these women are going to be running to the doctor being like, how do I get this What is
100%.
she on?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think if you're in a position like that, that's a different thing.
So be transparent about it, you know?
Yes.
So if I will use my platform, I'm not as obviously even a
It's
third
amazing.
or
I love that.
a
Yeah.
pinch as famous as that person, but I started taking the Manjaro, so a trizepatide, very short time,
Yeah.
lost like 10 pounds really quickly. Then I couldn't get it. So I'm going to tell my audience my story really quick and then I'm going to go to you. Then I got
Yeah.
put on Wegovy and I got that sample from my doctor. And I had all the side effects. Like I never had the nausea. I knew all the things to take, like to control like the digestive issues. I never went past the lowest dose. I went like up very, very slowly. And
Okay.
then I couldn't get it. Again, my insurance wouldn't. So
So
I was
frustrating.
on that. And then I told you I've been on the compounded medication. And what has happened with me is I'll go on it and then I got really sick. So I had to go off of it. Then so I've always been on like the lowest doses. So my weight loss has been so slow, like so slow that like people probably would notice. I probably lost like 20 pounds, 20 of the pounds I was trying to
Which
lose
is not nothing. It's still really hard.
over
That's like
7 months. Oh, no, over a year because I did some of it on my own. So like over a year. And and I don't have like knock on wood. There has been times like if I go up in a dose, I went back down because I felt so bad and I started feeling
amazing.
so nauseous and I didn't take like anti-nausea. So can you kind of address what your thoughts are on like use me for an example because I am coming to meet with you on November 30th. You're welcome. That's our appointment day.
Yeah.
On like what you would tell a patient about like going up a dose or going back down, like what
Yeah.
you think on that. Let's start there.
So this is methodological. This is what we do, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
basically, there's three variables this medicine affects, which is hunger, satiety, cravings. And I describe this as hunger, that feeling of hunger, cravings like oh my gosh, I want that pizza, and satiety is like I ate 2 bites of pizza, I'm full, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to see what the effectiveness is. What's our rate of weight loss? So how we approach it, right? So there's basically like 5 main buckets that we think about with weight loss,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's how much we eat, what we eat, sleep, stress, physical activity, right? You can't get around any of that, but the trick to this is making it easy, not hard. And that's what we help brainstorm. But what we do is we go, and then there's the side effects of the medicines, right? Clearly, like all the GI stuff and nausea, constipation. So we take all of that and we balance those things, right? And that's how we decide, right? Based on our results up to a max. We don't want to lose any more than 2 pounds a week. We're not always going to get that, but that's kind of what we go for. If we're not getting that, we optimize one of those things. But if we're, that's how we approach this. And we have to balance the effect, what we're getting and all that with the side effects. It's like a personal case. With you, like, I'd love to know the individual dose, and we'll talk about this. But
Yeah,
like we could
when
get,
I
like
see you.
plan it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about the actual individual doses and how we can actually construct this in a way to limit all that stuff. I do interesting things like I use prophylactic Zofran like the first few days because the other thing is our body gets used to these molecules. So initially we may feel more side effects, but as we use them more, our body gets used to it. You don't feel as much of the side effects, right? And importantly, I think I would like to dispel a misconception in that like everyone thinks or a lot of people think that, oh, you lose weight because you're sick. That's not true at all. Right? The goal isn't to feel miserable with everything I do, but like it's definitely not to feel miserable from the medicine, right? And so like it won't work if you're miserable, right? This isn't that. I have a lot of patients who have similar histories to you, have eating disorders and all that other stuff, right? Which has influenced all of this, and we deal with all of that, by the way. But nonetheless, like we have to find a way to actually make this work in people's lives. But we can do that. It's like there's a lot of nihilism. Like I think that would be described as nihilism. Like, oh, you can't do the medicine. It's too many side effects. Not like what you're saying, but what I'm just addressing what people are saying online.
Another thing I wanted to say is we're a culture of alcohol. I'm very upfront about how I have not struggled. Well, I mean, I'm a wino. I love my Chardonnay. And during COVID, I've I'm very upfront. I took several months off of drinking last year. Do not drink as much as I used to. What I love about these medications for me is it really curbs. I still drink on them, but it's not like I drink like you just can't. It takes away
Yes.
your something in your brain. Maybe you can break this down, because I know now these medications are being studied in alcoholics and cardiovascularly. So a lot
Oh
of
yeah, we got
cardiologists.
20% risk improvement.
Okay, so
Yes.
can you talk about that?
Okay, so I love this I love this area. So like a lot of my patients end up like, yeah, that's like when we use these medicines, like at least my patients are like, we stress protein, they're eating more protein, vegetables, drinking less, and actually, as we continue, like, so I started this company as mindful weight loss and expanding it now to mindful wellness, and like I want to be at the vanguard of using these medicines for alcohol and substances. So that's definitely going to come like in January, February. I definitely want to use them as such, because I've seen more than 1,000 people, and like people are doing so well with these things. They're freaking amazing. They're awesome. I think like part of it is because a lot of the pathways are the same, right? Like as I said initially, right? Like it triggers our brain faster than cocaine does. That's like because, and we know that, because we do the fMRI studies, but also like another medicine called Contrae, which is a combination of bupropion and naltrexone, right? We use for weight. Bupropion, it's an antidepressant, but we use for cigarettes. Naltrexone, we use for opiates and alcohol, but both these things we use for food. So this craving pleasure pathways, and now these companies, and I always just tell people like when I eat ice cream, I want all the ice cream in the world. That's how much it like affects my brain, right? That dopamine is like amazing, right? But when I eat like whole foods, fruits, vegetables, it doesn't. Like these products are just so designed to do that. And it's well documented now. Like the chip people, right? The companies, if something's not selling as much, there's a book, Fat, Salt, like it's just, this is like 100% documented. Like the food scientists adjust the amount of sugar, the amount of salt, the mouth feel. That's a variable that these scientists use, right? That like how it actually feels in your mouth to like increase the dopamine receptors to make sure that we buy more of those chips. So in this world, that's what we're in, right? And so like I think it makes complete sense to me why, if it affects like that type of what we call the hedonistic desire, which is, I don't mean that to be disparaging, it's just like these foods literally trigger that part of our brain, but so do the other stuff, and that's why there's a lot of like reactivity, why it affects one thing versus another also.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to go to kind of, because those are the good things. And I'm using myself, like I said, as a guinea pig. I drink maybe I'll drink like a glass of wine a night, maybe not even sometimes. But then I'm like, ew, this doesn't taste good. I don't like it like I used to. Why do I want to drink just to drink? Whereas before, I could have easily had like 3 glasses of my favorite buttery Chardonnay and been like, I wouldn't want to put it down. So that for me has been life changing. Some of the negative feedback that I would like for you to address is, and again, like we're a social media culture, right? So people see stuff on TikTok.
No, this is important to talk about.
Yeah. When I first started the medications, so I would say spring of last year was when I got my first sample. I sat there for 2 weeks and I stared at the shot. And I know, because a lot of people, when I had my episode with Jennifer Witherspoon, she talked about this. I was so scared to give myself this shot. And I was so scared to start, because I was like, what am I doing to myself? I'm going to like put my health at risk because I'm being so vain that I want to lose like this weight. And let me tell you something to all those people. This is just my case. I am so happy I gave myself that shot 2 weeks later, because it kind of has, my clothes fit better again. I feel better. I don't drink as much. Like I said, I'm more motivated. I still want to lose like another 20. But I just feel happier. Like I feel it didn't, for some people, it doesn't do this. So my question is, because this is a lot of the feedback that people say is it causes gallbladder issues or pancreatitis. Or what's the other one that I hear a lot? Pancreatitis, gallbladder issues. And then there's another one that I'm blanking on right now. So
Bowel
can you
obstruction.
address those for me?
Yeah.
Some of those.
So I tell everybody, right? Like everything has risks and benefits, right? So the risks of these medicines. So the main things people normally feel initially are some nausea, constipation. Some people feel a little bit, some people feel more, but as you use the medicine more and use it in the right way, those go away. The things we watch out for are things with cholecystitis, which is a gallbladder. Cholecystitis occurs because weight loss itself can cause that, but also these medicines do slow down gallbladder emptying. So there are, cases of cholecystitis, pancreatitis as well. This can cause renal failure. Although I've never had a patient who's actually had renal failure. Usually in the case reports because they're not drinking enough fluids. I think the more common thing we're going to start seeing more like because it slows your GI tract. And so we've had cases of like ileases, which is kind of like the bowel slowing down a little bit, right? My response to that is, first of all, I think you can mitigate a lot of that by dosing it correctly, right? By dosing it correctly and having a lot of follow-up. Like, again, what we do is like we meet with somebody for an hour initially, the clinician, half an hour. We have unlimited health coaching appointments, half an hour throughout the month. We have like concierge service. You can contact us 8 to 8. So if there's anything that happens, you call us and we like get on the phone, we figure out, we brainstorm what we need to do. So I think our high touch approach really helps mitigate a lot of stuff, right? Which I know is not the case for a lot of places who are providing the medicines. So I think in that case, it's there. But again, just like, taking into account, like as a society, like, again, the status quo isn't working, right? And if something if something has like less than a 1% chance of something happening like that versus doing nothing has, like, again, unfortunately, excess weight has high rates of heart disease, strokes. Actually, it's not actually as well known, but like, unfortunately, excess weight can cause risk of cancer because you have increased estrogen production and also increased insulin-like growth factors. So you have more like colon cancer and breast cancer and uterine cancers. And we know this because, when we have people who've done gastric bypass and you've seen like they have decreased rates of cancer compared to other people who haven't. And so basically, like, I think that just because something isn't 100% safe does not, I mean, we like, again, I don't want to disparage these questions. These are important questions, right? And I want everyone to ask me anything, right? This is important. I want to address all these things and I want to know all the social media stuff and I want to read them and I try to pay attention. I want to answer it. But I guess when I think of it logically, it's like you go in a car, there's a certain amount of risk. There's a lot of stuff there, right? And I think like the positives of the medicine outweigh the negatives by such an overwhelming amount used in the right way, right? I think it's just, as a society, it's 100% worth it, to make it even more available to people. And I also wanted to say, I think I know, you were saying like, oh, I was being big. I don't think that's a small thing. Like feeling like good about yourself is not a small thing. That's not like how you interact with the world is not a small thing, right? Like, and so the last point I want to make is like, so I started as a hospitalist. I still work in the hospital. But like when I'm in the hospital, right, and like usually I see people who've had like 30 years of disease, all the sugar molecules in their blood or the hypertension and all that causes stroke and all that. Like this is the most gratifying thing I've ever done, right? Like I prevent decades, or like me and my team, of course, all of us, we prevent decades of disease. Right? Like, so people, and that's like, think of like, that's spending like for the next decades, like they're living a better life, like they feel better about themselves. When they don't have that heart attack and when they're 60, their kids aren't taking care of them at that moment, that job is not struggling with that. Right? It's just like, again, it sounds grandiose, but like building it up all the way, like people feeling better about themselves might be people relate to each other in better ways and be kinder and compassionate towards each other. Right? So like, I don't think any of this stuff is small. I think this is huge. And so I think just given all of that, like, again, with the disclaimer, it should be done safely, but there are safe ways to do it, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, there's something inherent about the molecule and I can't use it or whatever. No, there's safe ways to do it.
Okay.
For the majority.
My next question is, so a lot of feedback that people give or I read, or because I'm the biggest hypochondriac in the world. Like I lost my dad at 46 to leukemia.
I'm sorry.
I'm constantly like,
really
what is that? What is that mole on my wrist? Like
Sure.
I've been like this my whole
Dude.
life. I'm super
Yeah.
paranoid. So there's a lot of feedback about that I've heard. This medicine's too new. That's a big one. Well, what's going to happen
Yeah.
in 20 years because this medicine is too new, which I know that that's not true because this has been, but can you
Yes.
address that? Because I can tell you
Yeah.
what I
No, that's
know,
a
but
great
I'm
point.
not the doctor.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No. So yeah. So I think that while yeah, of course it is true. Like you can never know the future, but the thing is that the first medicine in this class of medicine that got approved is called liraglutide. That's been out since like 2009, 2008. It's called Victoza for diabetes, and it was approved for weight loss in that year as Saxenda, right? It's in the same class of medicine, right? Then we got Ozempic in 2016, which is semaglutide, which is the big medicine that came out. And now we have tirzepatide, right? But we've had more than a decade of now like results of people using these class of medicines. And we've systematically studied them in multiple trials, right? And now we're continuously monitoring everything. And again, like that is true. And while there's a risk of anything, right, just all available data has shown that these are safe. And again, I would argue against people saying people who struggle like with excess weight, we know for sure that has so many health effects, right? And I do want to say that I think that like a lot of like basis behind a lot of this stuff is what I call, and you were kind of talking about it earlier, like what I call the willpower narrative. Like we think that, I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of this problem, right? Because it's like we all think that it's a willpower, or this is the messaging we get rather, that all we got to do is eat less, move more, that we're using this medicine, we're cheating, this is like a BS way, you should be able to do it on your own. Like it's just misunderstanding what this is, right? Like you wouldn't say that to a person who has diabetes, right? Or like to has like other like diseases, right? You wouldn't say like, oh, you shouldn't use this medicine. And I think because there's so much like of this like judgment and willpower like thinking that like we should just be able to do this on our own. Why are you doing something that could
I
be dangerous, right? But
I
it's
I
not
think
working. It's just
yeah,
not
I
working.
agree. And I think that in our country we have a big issue with hating people for their appearance or
Yes.
um seeing someone. I mean, I know that when I
Yes.
read on social media celebrity gains 10 pounds or doesn't bounce back the minute they have a baby, they're like chastised, they're treated like
Oh my
dirt,
gosh.
and it's really wrong. I do want to say one time I went to a doctor. I don't see this doctor anymore. But it was probably after I had my second daughter. And I've always I lost the weight with my first child, and then I've never been able to lose all the weight after the second.
That's
And
so hard.
I went to this doctor and she said, you need to eat 700 calories a day. And at the time, just so you know, I was
That
doing
is ridiculous.
700
That's freaking
calories a day.
ridiculous.
She told me to
That's
literally, I was like, I do. And at the
that is
time, I was
absolutely
doing Soul Cycle like
that's so much
5 days a
suffering.
week. And she
Yeah.
told me to eat 700 calories a day. And she made me feel so bad about myself. And so I think about all the women and men. I mean, this is an issue across the board that struggle with this.
It is.
And I
Yeah.
just really want people to know I wouldn't be talking about this or promoting it because this is my platform. I like to talk about things I believe in or I have experience in if I didn't really think that it's a good thing. And like you said,
Yeah.
you kind of have to like weigh, I hate to use that word, no pun intended, weigh the options here that like, for me, I'll use me again. When I started to gain the weight, my cholesterol went up.
Mhm.
I would be interested because I haven't had a physical like probably in 6 months. If I can probably bet that my cholesterol's gone down. That
Yeah.
was like my one issue. It's a
For sure.
hereditary thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the LDL cholesterol might be a little bit less amenable to weight
Yeah,
loss, but the
yeah.
triglycerides and other parts of it definitely have gone down.
Yeah, yeah. So, um with everything that we've said today, plus if you are listening to this episode and you want to listen to somebody that I met, her name's Jennifer Witherspoon. She lost 105 pounds on
That's so cool.
Manjaro. She is a walking testament. You can follow her on TikTok. I think her name is Mama. I can't remember the name. I'll post it on social media. But she's a testament. I mean, there's so many people that this medicine has changed their lives. So
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just
I've
going to
seen it
say that.
myself, like, and I'm just
So have you
like
used it
grateful to be
yourself?
part of it.
Have you used it
I've used
yourself?
it intermittently, but I've lost weight twice in my life. So like, when I was in high school, right, I struggled with weight. I was a very anxious kid. I actually used to smuggle hydroxycut from GNC and take a lot of it as a
I
kid in high
remember
school.
that stuff.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I know. And I lost a lot of weight going from senior to college. And then I gained a lot of weight in med school, residency, and all of this. And then I got married, which is helpful. And then I slowly stopped. Like I started losing weight. And then, so I had lost weight by the time I've gotten into this. But I feel like that experience has really helped me see it. And I now use it intermittently because that's how I use it as a tool for maintenance. Right.
Okay.
Because again, like you don't have to like after like, and I do it with all my patients, right? Like I initially weekly, of course, and then, or whatever, like however it works in people's lives safely, of course. But then afterwards, use it every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, take people off, put them on, kind of use it as a tool that it is. Right.
That
Again,
was my next question. Sorry to talk over you. So once you
no.
so maybe talk about your own experience, but once you
Yeah.
get to the point, like, so say I lose the amount I want to lose and I'm happy with it. Is
Yes.
this because it is, there's so many components of weight gain. One of them's genetics,
Yes.
one of them's food,
Yeah.
one of them, there's so many
A billion
different things.
percent.
Do people
Yeah.
stay on this? Do you have to stay on this for the rest of their lives?
So I think it's important to like talk about why everyone quotes like this one statistic. So you get 2/3 of the weight. So this is a Novo Nordisk trial, right? Where they took like a group of people and over 5 months, they like ramped them up to the highest dose of Wegovy, which is semaglutide, right? To 2.4. Then they took half the people, they put them on placebo, and half the people they continued on 2.4. Over the next like 60 weeks, the placebo group regained 2/3 of the weight, right? So I think like obviously you have to design a trial in a specific way, and it's an interesting trial that shows something. But I think like how at least we use the medicine, right? 5 months is too short to make these behavioral changes. And what we do is like we use the medicine to do these things, right? Like if someone has a habit of buying Doritos in the house or something, right? I keep picking on Doritos because that's one of my trigger foods, I guess. But like, basically like, and if we practice not having that, that's sustainable weight loss, right? If someone's coming home from work, stopping and getting the French fries and coming home, and if we figure out other things that truly work in their lives, that's sustainable weight loss, right? So there's that. And additionally, they went from like 2.4 to 0, right? Again, you have to do it for a trial, but like, when people quote this thing in the media and they say like 2/3 weight gain, they should see kind of like the specifics of what's going on. Like I never do that, right? What we do is we go down slowly and we practice as we go down. And then we can use it in interesting ways, like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, right? Because as you mentioned, right, there's many inputs in this whole thing. Right. It could be like, and that's like, again, we spend so much time talking to people initially and learn everything about their lives. It's like, you could like, oh, I got my weight control. Then I got this new job. I have to commute 2 hours every day. I have to rush out of the house. I have to get something here. There's food at work all the time now. Right. Or like I got in this promoted. I'm in this position. I'm so stressed all the time now. Like I don't have any time when I come home or whatever. I had like kids. Right. And all the biological stuff that happens there. And perimenopause, there's nothing that slows your metabolism down like that. Right. And so like there's all of these factors that are in there. And this is a tool that can help with that because, Frank, like nothing else is helping, right? Like it's not like we have, I mean, we can get like, I could spend a whole podcast talking about the travesty what we feed our kids, right? But like even like the food environments around us, there's only more. Like if you go to the store now, there's like 30 types of M&Ms or something. It's just nuts, like how crazy everything is getting, right? And it's just like, it's that's what we do over and over again. We're like, we're going to take away the tool because that's cheating and it's up to you to figure out. And we're not going to do anything to help you. Right? Because this is like an individualistic thing, but it's so stupid. I mean, first of all, we're humans. We're only great because we're together. We should work together to achieve things, right? Which we do every single day, but it's just, I don't know. That was probably tangential, but
No, I love it. And I think it's so important. Okay. One of my last things is, So say, because a lot of my listeners, like I said, are all over the world and they want to meet with you. Or they want to get more information from you because they're sitting there like I was or my friend was, and they're like, I want to start this, but insurance won't approve it, or my insurance won't approve it, but I have the financial means to pay $1,500 a month out of pocket. That's not a sustainable thing for people. So if they can go the compounded route or they can get the insurance to approve it, how does somebody contact you? They can go through your Instagram, but do you meet with people all over the country?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We're actually boarded like everywhere. We're expanding fast. The goal is to get everywhere. We can help anybody. Like we could figure out creative solutions to a lot of ways to help people. So, I mean, the US number like is that I made it easy. I want it to be just like one number. So it's 310-220-4543. Again, 310-220-4543. And the same thing for Dr. Shah, by the way, just like contact that number. Or like just go to our website. We actually redid it, mindfulwellness.com, right?
Okay.
Mindfulwellness.com.
And then where can people, because I know, by the way, if you go on social media, this social media account is new. So I want people to know that. I like to say that because sometimes people will see like there's not a lot of followers. You guys, I am a testament to being a patient now of Dr. Shah. I'm not kidding when I tell you I believe in what she does. I believe in what Dr. Gupta does. And I'm going to be his patient starting next week. So I want you to really, if you want to kind of get a hold of your, whether it be your perimenopause symptoms or you're already in menopause, or even if you're not, say you're like, I'm not in perimenopause, I'm 38. Knowledge is power. Or say you're just like in your early 30s and you're starting to have issues with PCOS, or you're starting to have issues with weight gain, or you had your first baby and you can't shake the weight, call and like get some help. You deserve it. Like you're freaking fantastic. I don't know many of you and I get mad at you all the time because I want you all to reach out to me more, but I really, really genuinely mean this because you only have one life. We have one short life, one trip on this planet. Like, why not look and feel your best? I feel like I could be in your infomercial. So when you're ready to make one, I'm ready to be your spokesperson.
We're done. Let's do it. That sounds great. No, I mean, I 100% believe that. I love that. Right?
Yeah,
it's so true.
It's true.
Like, we have tools. We have help. There's the ability to help now. And there's no reason we all have to be so Spartan about any of this stuff. Like saying like, oh, like I should just do everything on my own and everything. No, there's tools now, right? It's different.
Yeah. And also like I like to get up on my podium and talk a lot. That's why I have a podcast. Ladies, if you're losing 30 pounds, like help everybody else out and tell them the truth. That's just like my little skosh of a thing that I'm asking you, because then when you tell people you're just like doing kickboxing and eating 700 calories a day, women feel bad about themselves or men feel bad about themselves because it's not, they can't do it. So if you are using this method, like own it, be proud, be like, thank God we live in the time that we do, that we have these medicines and we have all these resources. So with that, what is your Instagram? I forgot to say what it was.
It's a Mindful Wellness Brands.
My Mindful Wellness Brands. So go follow, and I'm telling you right now, I'm a huge believer. And in closing, if you ever have questions, you know you can always reach out to me. I love hearing from you all. I'm so grateful. Top 200 health and wellness Apple US charts. Thank you for that. Thank you for always supporting me. Thank you for your reviews. I adore my listeners. I'm always so grateful to be doing this. And in closing, be happy by making other people happy. Thank you, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you so much, Meghan. It's a pleasure.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.